But we chose to make what you're about to see a film based on fun. And it's just a little different, insofar as there is no story and no plot. That's right. I said no story, no plot. It is actually a series of silly sequences. Or you might say it is a visual diary of a few weeks in the life of a real nut. It's real silly.
I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Pampered fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended Clip.
Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 407, and I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
Ladies! Oh. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's Jerry Lewis week on the podcast.
Lewis lives.
Lewis lives. This is a real Max Rose of a podcast.
I thought maybe we were going to do the cold opening where I'm sitting at the desk and I'm like, this podcast may contain, may not detail the plot of the movie or, the riffs might be, nonsensical, like in the beginning of the Bellboy. For the viewers, yeah. For the viewers who haven't seen the movie, that happens at the beginning of the Bellboy.
We're here to talk about the Bellboy. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is Jerry Lewis this week in our May of firsts and lasts. So the episodes this week will be on his first directorial effort, The Bellboy, and his last directorial effort, Smorgasbord, a.k.a. Cracking Up. Now, Jerry Lewis, these are not his first and last films, of course. He had been around for quite some time. For those who don't know, although I'm sure if you listen to this podcast, you have some, at the very least, passing familiarity with Jerry Lewis, one of the recurring faves of the podcast, We've done episodes on, like, Hardly Working and The Ladies' Man, but, obviously comes to prominence as a partner act with Dean Martin. After they break up, he breaks off into being his own producer and director as well, taking what he learned from guys like Frank Tashlin at Paramount and applying it to becoming what he referred to as himself, the total filmmaker. These films were met with pretty lukewarm criticism in the US, but were at least very popular, the first handful of Paramount ones. And as he got less popular, as the 60s went on and that mode of comedy was less hip, see Skidoo, if you will, his popularity started to wane and was more relegated to being like a nightclub legacy act kind of guy. And then in the 80s has this huge artistic comeback. And, by now people had already been making jokes about how he was treated as such a serious, great artist in France. That's always been the line on Jerry Lewis. And it's because French cinephiles know what they're doing. Cahiers du Cinema always puts Clint Eastwood and M. Night Shyamalan on their top 10s of the year. So Positif was a magazine that was the Jerry head film rag. They were Jerry is as good as, Dreyer, Orson Welles, John Ford. He's the god of comedy directing. And this was seen as a joke in America for a long time. And I think it's really only in the 21st century that people have in more mainstream American critical circles started to really come around on that, despite that the ball gets rolling in the 80s, of course, because King of Comedy is a film that all the film nerds love, of course. And then, with King of Comedy, he also has Hardly Working and Smorgasbord on either side of that. And so he has some directorial efforts to flex with his newfound cineast fans, but it never resulted in him directing another picture. And so that's the long and short of it on the arc of Jerry Lewis. This movie in particular, his first directorial effort, he made this movie super fast at a Florida hotel that he was working at. So he would like shoot during the day and then do his shows at night as a nightclub act. And yeah, it is just like a very loose sketch comedy film about Jerry as a mute bellboy named Stanley, and there's a lot of homages to silent cinema. His writing partner Bill Richmond, who like wrote The Ladies' Man, for example, he shows up like as Stan Laurel, you know, so it's like a big homage to the silent cinema because, you know, Jerry is known for The Voice, among other things. So I think it was very brave of him, I think, to have his directorial debut be this like total plotless cacophony with no story at all, which, you know, in the old Hollywood days is kind of a big deal. Like, they didn't have movies like this necessarily back then. And to do it without his signature voice, as it were. You only get the mute Jerry, and then you also get Jerry playing himself as like talk show Jerry, kind of, because that's another persona, is like cool, serious Jerry Lewis, who's an intellectual and a hotshot, you know, so he's too cool for you on the streets, but when you meet him on the couch on the talk show, he's very informed about cinema, and he thinks that there are some very qualified critics out there, you know.
He's like,
and then he'll like launch into like a whole diatribe about why Pauline Kael like doesn't know, like he was offended by Pauline Kael's critique of him or something like that, and then like the next time he goes on TV, he's on Letterman doing The Voice and doing a bunch of gags and stuff like that. So it's I feel like this movie, just as like an opening statement for him as a director, is so strong because it's like he knows what his strengths are. He knows that the audience knows what his strengths are due to seeing him in previous films, TV, nightclub shows, whatnot. And he's just going to subvert it right away just to show how much he can do, you know? And the pantomime mute thing, he did some of that. Like the typewriter gag is like an essential talk show Jerry gag. But like people wanted him doing the voice and the you know, playing off of Dino and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like that talk show persona is like to let people know, yeah, I'm not that fucking nerd I play in the movies, all right? I'm not a fucking klutz, all right? I'm actually a really thoughtful guy who's, you know, doesn't slip on banana peels, and, you know, I have a normal masculine voice. But like with this movie too, it is like different from a lot of the other debuts we've been tackling, because I guess we kind of been doing that past couple months or so. But
yeah, like beyond this month where we like intentionally did that, I feel like we've done some, if not debuts, then very early films lately. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's much different because, you know, Jerry been in the industry, you know, as an actor for a while, and, you know, worked with directors multiple times, you know, most notably Tashlin. And, you know, even though it's not necessarily what he's known for, it is like, by centering him, it is just a much different ball game, because I've seen maybe like maybe two or two of those like Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, you know, buddy comedies.
Let's see, Hollywood or Bust?
No.
Models and Artists?
Of course.
Artists and Models, rather.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe I've only seen one, to be honest. I feel like there was another one I've seen. I can't.
In the Army Now, maybe something like that. Was it like a bad one?
It wasn't as good as Artists and Models, which I highly, highly regard. But you know, from what I could tell, I feel like, you know, Dean kind of gets like these there's like a romantic storyline, or, you know, you have to deal with the two-headed nature of those movies, and, you know, like by him just being a solo act, he really gets to play to his strengths, and it's like, okay, like, you know, like the shoehorned Hollywood romance, you know, that you'd find in a lot of these movies, you know, let's do away with that. And let's just do away with any kind of traditional plot structure, and just, you know, let me execute these gags in the highest order. And yeah, it's just really smart from like a career, you know, to wear my producer hat, you know, just to kind of make something that's very specific to him. But at the same time, that's also stands out as like a, you know, putting my film critic hat on, you know, that's just, it produces a lot more interesting results. And, you said like they didn't have movies like this back then. They don't have movies like this now. You know what I mean?
Course,
People would be more open to the idea of it for sure, but it's like in terms of like actually getting movies like this, I don't know. I think like
Schizopolis by Soderbergh or something like
Yeah,
that. Like that would be the closest, maybe.
like,
Or an Adam Sandler movie
43 or
Yeah.
something. I mean,
Yeah.
the sketch. This isn't quite like a hard line sketch movie like a movie 43 is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's a little bit more specific.
It's
but
just vignetted.
But yeah, that's kind of there was a little bit of room for those, I guess, in like shitty parody movies and like movie 43. But I don't know, like, especially hearing the production story of him like shooting this during the day while he would do his act at the hotel at night. I mean, it takes some, like, it just shows that there was a real desire to innovate and kind of prolong his career, because he could have easily been a guy who had 10 good years and people just remember him as like that funny guy back in the 50s. But as we all know, he truly wanted to flex his artistry, and I really respect that.
It's just fun to like consider like just how well Jerry is like doing everything here. I mean, obviously, again, like it's not like it's a directorial debut, but he's in the industry for so long and learns so much from his collaborators. Like, I mean, throughout Jerry's career, I mean, I feel like Tashlin is the one you feel like the strongest touch of, at least just be in terms of being able to like choreograph some of his gags and things, but just the way like he has, and I mean, I think it's something that like with the genre of comedy, like people overlook like how much work it is. And I mean, we're not doing like anything like, I don't know, like sensational by like pointing that out, but it's funny how it does sort of like work in like cycles like that, where it's just like I don't know, with like Lewis, like I feel like in America with like what Eddie was saying, like obviously there's that joke about like, well, the French really appreciate the effort that it takes for gags and things like that. You jump forward and like I feel like people like forget, like with the whole Sandler project that the podcast has embarked on, and just like speaking to the quality of his films and him as an artist, it's something where it's just like, okay, a few years go by and you're able to like appreciate and be like, well, actually, like this comedian was a skilled artist as well. But I mean, so much of like watching this movie for the second time, I'm just like impressed at like how he's able to calibrate like the comedy so well, both in terms of like, okay, like keeping something in like a wider shot and like just like composing like what is the funniest way to like visually present this gag. Like I feel like it makes like cutting all that more difficult. And then like his own performance, because like Jerry loves to like run a gag to death, and then like it gets even funnier because of just how long he's struggling with something. I think like that is just like a quality where you need like so much confidence as a comedian to be able to like, I don't know, perform for that long and let it get a little tedious and then let it wrap around. I think I don't know. It's just like the genre in general is just so difficult, and I think that is what makes like, I don't know, Lewis's filmography like all the more impressive, because it is a genre that people take for granted.
Absolutely. And also, I think this, as like a first film, is a perfect reason why, let's say, because when we say French critics, at this time in history, when someone says a French critic, they most likely just mean an auteurist critic. Like, this is 1960 we're talking about. That is the prime era of that movement as, like, a form of criticism. So, like, I don't know, just choosing to make such an unconventional, plotless movie that plays with like his own self-image and everything. It's no wonder that the auteurists were there for it right away. And Jerry was very open in interviews about how he learned to direct simply by like paying attention to what everyone does on set when he's an actor. Like when he was an actor, he just wanted to know how to make movies, so he just watched what everyone did on set, figured out everything, and that's why the book he wrote on filmmaking is called The Total Filmmaker. Obviously, he learns a lot about how to use like visual flair in service of comedy from someone like Frank Tashlin, but also he made plenty of movies with someone like Norman Torog, who's a total like nothing director. Dude made like 80 movies though, so you have to think that's probably where he learned like basic studio competency, like being able to turn things around on time and under budget and whatnot, because like for those 4 or 5 years it seemed like Jerry was like kind of had a not quite a blank check, but like could kind of just run wild at Paramount, like as a director, like from the Bellboy's reception and the profits it made and everything, like up until things started to fade toward the late 60s. Like he really just was able to make these super weird, unconventional, broad comedies that like a lot of people would watch them and they wouldn't even think that they were unconventional because the comedy is so broad. But when you just think about whether it's the dramatic shape or how he chooses to stage things, like I think it's in Histoire du Cinema that Godard, just like in a very brief thing, he's attributing 2 adjectives to all these directors. I don't know why. Like he says, because he's saying he wishes that he was like, he said, I wish I was blank and blank like Jean Vigo, blank and blank like Antonioni, funny and austere like Jerry Lewis. And I think that austerity in this sense, the sense of like laying things plain and letting his character be the only crazy thing sometimes really works. And also like just his camera work is so plain to an extent where it's like almost Bressonian toward the end. Like he does some, like he has visual flair, but oftentimes he will play things so plain for a gag that like, characters get beheaded by the frame like a Bresson movie or something like that. And it's just like very odd choices that really individuate him as a director visually. But also, it's just him doing funny stunts and gags the whole time, like we just fell into the French critic trap. We're just like talking about how great of an artist of, space he is, and not talking about how it's a guy making faces and, in his other movies, like yelling in a funny voice.
I mean, yeah, but that's also what makes him stand out.
Exactly.
And why he's so discussed. Because, yes, I do think the gags are funny, too. Because there's, this is, from people who are uninitiated, and I feel like this podcast is for the initiated usually, but you never know. But it is like for someone who's not really deep into this world of film criticism, like you could just watch a Jerry Lewis movie and be like, this is what they think is like good. It's like a guy yelling, in the Bellboy that would not be the case, but
some people yell at him.
That is true. Yeah, but like this is just goofball humor, but it is like he is visually austere, but it's like the decisions he makes they stand out so much just because of how comedy is usually shot, especially at the time. Like I feel like some of the funniest comedy movies are not necessarily like the most well shot movies or the most well directed movies, and they live off of the strength of their jokes, and I enjoy those because I enjoy humor. But what makes Lewis stand out is like it's not showy, but it is like, especially on this rewatch, I was just kind of really like tapped in on the visual movements, and they individuate him as a director, but also as a performer, and like I think there's just like a lot of comedy gets swamped in kind of like reaction shots, like there's like a scene in this movie where Jerry is, I think it's somewhere in the middle of the movie, where there's some guy who looks like Brian Windhorse, and he's leaving the hotel with a big fucking 1950s piece of luggage, and as he gets out of the elevator, like Jerry comically latches onto it, and the hotel patron's like, nah, you should have got this earlier, and like Jerry, he just gets dragged by the suitcase. And it's not quite a one take, but it is like it's all kind of done like in wide and like you just kind of feel like the physicality of just like Jerry getting dragged across a room, whereas like I don't know, like the traditional 50s comedy, they would cut to the old lady being like, oh heavens, or whatever, or like, and like maybe like a closer shot of the guy,
even if it
something.
was just like stayed on them without reactions, it wouldn't have been filmed in such an elegant way. Like there are certain scenes in this movie, and more as you go along, up until the climax of Smorgasbord, I think is like the most elegantly filmed thing he's done. It's like a Kubrick scene almost. But like, yeah, it just like sneaks up on you. You don't really think about it, and then you like, I don't know. I think it's also easier with distance too, because like at the time, I don't think, because of how slyly beautiful he films things, like how he's not really like showing off that he's like a true artist. It's like these kind of things sneak up on you. I don't know. I think at the time, maybe people just didn't see. It was hard to see that when the comedy was so broad and similar to other stuff that they saw. And at this point in time, they're like, I could just stay home and watch old Three Stooges on TV. Like, and then you think about how a scene like that would be shot in a Three Stooges short, and it would be hilarious, but it would not be beautiful,
Yeah. In terms of like minor, like little flourishes of style that I think make something like genuinely impressive. Like one of the like classic gags of Jerry playing something for too long. In this case, it's not himself, but it's the arrival of Jerry Lewis, the actor. And there's the entirety of his entourage, I suppose, getting out of the big limo that just like goes on forever, just like people going out in the car. But towards the end of it, he does something where it's just like, again, like it's just a little touch that I don't like. It just like makes it all the more like impressive. But like, I think in a normal comedy, or like a comedy where like a director is being like less intentional about the visual look, you just like cut off. You have the side of the door just like kind of cut off, like how Jerry originally frames it, and then obviously you just have people just walking through the car from one side to the other. But towards the tail end of it, it signals to the audience that it is coming to an end, because you're like, he just positions it over for a little bit, and then you see like the other side of the car, and you see the last people like kind of getting in and out. And I wouldn't say that necessarily like makes the gag funnier. And I mean, like, if you know like movies, like obviously I think you have an idea. Even if you don't, you could take a shot at how they're cheating that there. But Jerry showing the back end of the door, like the other end of the door being closed to me, I think is nice, because it's just like, okay, you get in the reality of it. It's like he's preserving that, like putting a nice little seal on it, making it seem just a little bit more like movie magic. And it's something, again, like a gesture I definitely didn't like pay attention to or notice the first time through.
Absolutely. So this movie is ostensibly about Jerry, the mute bellboy at this hotel that he shot it at, and comprised of a series of vignettes, as we said earlier, and he's just like messing up the whole time, right? And it made me think about something, how like it's almost horseshoe theory of like Hawksian cinema of guys who are good at their jobs, like, because what's more relatable than having a shitty job that you're kind of bad at, but like everyone loves the Hawks movies where it's like a bunch of guys getting it done who are good at their jobs, and I'm one of those people. I adore those movies. I just don't project myself onto those necessarily when it comes to like work,
Mm-hmm.
like they're more relatable for me, like playing pickup basketball or something like that, not that I'm that good at basketball.
But you treat it with the seriousness it deserves. And,
exactly. But yeah, no, it's like the absolute other end of the spectrum of where Hawks gets like comedy out of workplace camaraderie, kind of. Jerry is just like a total outcast who everyone thinks is crazy and like makes fun of and stuff, and sets him off to do like the shittiest tasks that they have to do at the hotel. And it's just like the total opposite of the Howard Hawks approach. And I think that that's like just a great thing about cinema, is that the thing that you think can be the absolute peak of cinema, the opposite of it can also be the peak of cinema.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's like, it makes me think that you can never be like dogmatic about that kind of stuff.
No, definitely. I think that's a very good point. And it is, but it also, both those things kind of interact with each other in a sense, right? Where, you know, it's funny that Jerry's messing up because this is like such a well-oiled of a machine of a like hotel that they're running here. Like I find it funny at the beginning. You know, they have all the bellboys like lined up in the lobby, like army men, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know. I always like that setup, like in a workplace, like all the workers are like lined up, and then the boss is kind of like
Very military style.
swarming around the lot. Like, what would you guys say if you were the man? I'd be like, I know we don't want to be here, guys.
Yeah.
No, we all want to
like,
work on our screenplay.
When we have like more of a staff on extended
exactly.
clip, and like I'm lining you guys up in the beginning. I have you and JT like at the front of the line, and I just kind of give you guys like a nod. I'm like, you know, yeah, you guys can go sit down, and the rest of the staff is standing up still, and I'm walking back and forth, and I'm like, look, guys, I know you'd rather be on Letterboxd right now. I know you'd rather be, prepping for that top 4 video you think you're going to get one day, you know, grinding tape at home, watching all the Kurosawas and your Eclipse set of Oshima. But you know what? For 2 hours, you're mine. And we are going to run this podcast like the well-oiled critical machine that it is. Do you want me to fire you so you can go work for Blank Check?
Yeah, like
I heard they need interns.
like we have a Club Random style podcast network.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm also like tapping a Billy Club in my hand while I'm doing that, walking back and forth.
I would. That's kind of the tone of the message. I would put like a positive spin on it and be like, you know, there is, you know, I know maybe this isn't exactly what you want to do. Maybe you'd rather be, you know, at home doing something else or working on your passion or whatever. But there is, you know, hard work can set you free. It doesn't matter if it's not exactly what you want to do. Everything you do, you should do with a, you know, intent, and you should do the best possible quality of job possible. So just know that even if it's not the most important thing, putting your 100% effort into it is just gonna enrich your life so much more.
So
that's what I would say if I had them all lined up like that.
So you think I was too negative? So you said what was written on the walls at the concentration camps, that work will set you free.
Is that where that phrase comes from?
Yeah,
Yes.
Hard work will set you free.
I
just
thought you were
work
doing
will
a
set you
bit.
free.
Yeah.
I thought that was intentional on Malcolm's part, but when you went a little bit further with it, I was like, is
I don't
that
think
what
he
he's getting at?
realizes that is. I mean, that's our Day the Clown cried moment right there. That's a.
Well, you know, I guess that's one thing me and them agree on, I guess, you know.
That was actually I kind of used that misunderstanding once in a script I wrote.
Oh, really?
Yeah, funny
Damn.
enough. Yeah.
That's I feel like I've heard that phrase in other places where it wasn't really, they didn't let you know it was on the concentration camp wall, you know. I read that on the walls of my last job, I'm pretty sure. That was in the break room. So yeah, I don't
Now, what kind of salute did you have to give your boss at that job?
I can't even come up with a riff. I was
We
waving
keep
goodbye because I would
we
leave.
keep it PC on this show. We don't need to get into any kind of.
I would have said something bad. I just couldn't think of anything.
Yeah.
But
to get back to the multi-pronged approach to enjoying this movie, what JT had just described, that like clown car gag of Jerry's entourage coming out of the limo, and like the elegant camera movement at the end that reveals that, ooh, maybe it's not a clown car, you know, how'd they do that? The next scene is just like Jerry with the entourage at the hotel, and he's just going, hold it for like 2 minutes straight. It is just like one of the most drawn out things in the movie for sure, but it's so funny to me because like usually he's not doing those kind of drawn out bits in that more serious cool voice too. So that's a little bit novel about it as well.
Oh, hold it. Is this where we register?
Yes, sir. Right this way.
Hold it. Hold it. Hold back. Hold it back. Hold it. Hold it. Hold it. Stop with the brushing. Now, we've been together a long time. I've asked you many, many things, and you've come up fat for me. But now I'm asking you to hold it. Stop pushing, stop rushing, just hold it. Now, we're all adults, and I'll expect you all to conduct yourselves in such a fashion as an adult will. Hold it. I've never asked you this, but I'm asking you now simply, purely, hold it!
You know, I couldn't help but think of, you know, the entourage following him around. It kind of reminded me of one of the recent episodes of The Rehearsal where they have that guy who has trouble dating, so they have him date in a pack. He's got like a pack of people following him.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Was that like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. This is
I'm a
pretty
couple
fresh.
behind. I'm a couple behind.
But I was, you know, there was a couple moments here where, you know, and I'm sure that's not the first time a pack of people has been mined for humor there in the Bellboy. But it just, you know, for someone who, you know, is the humor maybe seems like a little bit old fashioned. Like I feel like you could still see the influence in other things, and just the Hollywood satire element of the Bellboy is just really funny because it is like, I don't know, it's kind of another aspect of the movie that's kind of even separate from what we've been talking about, but that's just all really smart and well done, and like all the stuff with like Milton Berle and just kind of like, you know, critiquing like how ridiculous celebrity culture is through that. I don't know, just is very forward thinking.
The Milton Berle thing where him and Jerry are going back and forth playing bellboys and themselves using like trick staging and cutting kind of it reminds me of like it's like a less lazy version of what we saw Malcolm I almost called him Fred Allen, the 1937, the Jack Benny artists and models, where it's like really relying on like, hey, you know this guy, right? Like
Milton Berle, you know. Yeah. But maybe we should, Jerry fucks with Berle. Maybe we should get into Milton Berle. Maybe there's a whole
I know
treasure trove.
One thing about Milton Berle.
Yeah. What?
It's huge.
Oh yeah, I
remember Bill Simmons was like obsessed with making that reference.
Where did that reference come in the first place? Who made that?
I think he was like he was a part of the original like the Dean Martin roasts.
Yeah,
and I feel like well, I don't know if could they be dirty in the roasts?
Definitely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it was like
racist.
an old Hollywood like famous joke. Or
yeah, they couldn't say shit,
joke,
but they could be extremely racist.
But I remember that a little bit of. I've seen a couple of those. A little bit of Foster Brooks, you know, a little bit of. I can't name anyone else, but yeah. I think but they could at least refer to it, kind of being
like work slightly blue.
Yeah. Like,
no,
Burl's
the
got
copy
a hammer
of the Bellboy that I was watching was so pristine and crisp. You could see the outline of the Burl print, and I think he outmeated Jerry in this one. Unfortunately,
true. Jerry was trying to go meat for him in that scene. Yeah. That was kind of more of like it was more competitive than we kind of realized. That was a real celebrity dick measuring match.
It's really good because like Florida is not going to have any meat offs anytime soon. You know, like that's like
why?
I'm just thinking about current sports teams. You know, no one like dominating.
Oh, okay, they're not.
No
they're
superstars.
Not, there's no. I don't know. I was trying to.
Donovan Mitchell, SGA's down there.
I was like, do you mean like humidity or something?
No. Well, I was thinking about that too, but not real. I wasn't incorporating that into what I was saying. I was just actually referring to the basketball teams that make up the meat off.
True, that is true.
Well, there's.
So they need someone to represent.
In terms of actual the meat here, there's that picture of Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin naked together. Yes. Like that's the craziest thing in the world. Like staged them like for like what are they
Yeah,
doing?
it's weird
What's
that it was
for?
staged because I remember it seeming like it was like a paparazzi caught them or something. Like that's how I had remembered it. I was like, no, because then it would have been like the legend was that they were together.
This is
or
how we come up with
whatever.
our ideas.
Yeah,
Leave us
no,
alone.
but it was like part of a photo shoot, and they were just like both showing raw.
I think it was Terry Richardson Sr. was the guy who photographed him there.
Okay, that's a pretty good one, honestly. Terry Richardson Sr.
There's a whole photo shoot unreleased of them in tidy whities with the flash photography, and I can't remember the other characteristics of his photos, but yeah. For the youngins, look that guy up. Look up Vice.com. Get into that.
One of the things that happens at the hotel is that there's a model convention, which is a very funny like plot device. Is there an earthquake going on right now?
I don't feel anything.
I felt like this table was shaking briefly, like very briefly. It was probably a light one anyway.
I could, I
Roll
move
with the
things when I
punches,
stomp around.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? I kind of that could be me.
Yeah, so the model convention thing's hilarious because it's like these women show up and all of the bellboys that were all lined up just like sprint over and start groping them uncontrollably, and like have to
mass
get
assault, as I like to call it.
beaten away by their bosses. Like it's like such an absurd thing. But then later on, like one of them just like falls asleep cuddling with Jerry, kind of, and he like very slowly tries to like start making out with her and gets caught and embarrassed in front of everybody.
Yeah,
it's a pretty humiliating scene.
Well, then of course maybe the funniest like line non-visual gag, kind of just dialogue joke, is when the head bellhop heads into his boss's office. He's like, I had all my bellhops in a line, and they saw these models, and they came in, and they just, they started grabbing them, and, I was the only one who didn't get to. He's upset over that. So that was, I kind of died on that one.
Just that moment of Jerry getting caught with that girl on the couch, though, like, I think that's, for this movie, the peak of his, like, cross-eyed mugging. Like, it goes on for a while of him just, like, alternating between like a handful of different facial expressions for like 30 seconds or so. It's just so good.
Yeah,
The longest drawn out thing is when they go to the strip joint and there's that like musical comedy band called the Novelites playing, and that goes on for way too
That's a little too long
That
there.
shit kind of sucks. Like that is like they have to be like his friends, or maybe like Jerry's friends with like a bookie, and like those guys owe a lot of money.
That was
So like they did it for free,
there's like there's like a 7-minute stretch of this movie where I'm kind of zoning out, and most of it is that, just to levy one small critique after minutes and minutes of praise
of pure glaze-a-thon.
Yeah, we need to be more. All right, let's list the top 5 things we dislike about this. No, I'm just kidding. We need to be more critical. We need to start. No. I'm kidding.
Also, like toward the end, there's this like kind of insane visual gag that's not funny at all. It's just like neat, like him showing off what he can do with filmmaking, where he takes a picture of the moon and then it turns into sunlight right away.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys remember, I think it's GTA Vice City. That was like an Easter egg in the game.
Oh, shit.
I'm not sure if it was only with the rocket launcher, but I remember doing it with that. If you shoot the moon, it like fast forwards to daytime. And I wonder if Rockstar Games was doing an homage to the Bellboy with that, shooting the moon to turn it into the sun.
Shit, maybe.
Could
you know
be.
what I mean? It could be Game of Telephone, where they didn't even know that they were being influenced by it. But hell, it's Miami too. One of those GTA games has to be set in Miami, right? According to my guesses. I don't know.
Well, that's what Vice City's supposed to be. Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Shit.
Yeah. What, you never played that?
No, well, I stayed away from violent video games, and not because my parents. At a young age, I morally stood up against that.
Yeah.
So,
Good for you.
thank you.
Good for you. JT, any final thoughts on this movie and a bullet rating?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go 4 bullets on this one. I think it's pretty great, especially like as a debut. Gag-based movies are one of my faves, and I feel like obviously there's so much just like built on like sensibility there. Like if you don't find any of the like mugging or like faces that Jerry makes, you're going to have a completely miserable time. Like it's definitely calibrated to a specific sensibility there. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something that's like very playful. And I think just, I don't know. I mean, the fact that we'll be talking about Smorgasbord in the next like episode, even though that one very, very loosely, you could say, has more of a plot. But like, I like, I don't know, Jerry consistently, like at the very beginning of his directorial career, and then at the very end, it's all about the gags and how you can do them in the most like efficient, effective way possible. And yeah, I don't know. Great movie, great filmmaker.
Malcolm, what about you?
I'm gonna go 4.5 bullets. This has always been one of my favorite Jerry Lewis pictures. You know, talking about the model stuff, you know, which it goes to some unsavory places, I guess. But and like, there's a scene where Jerry is like overhearing a phone call, what seems like a young woman, kind of phoning her mom back, being like, "Oh, I have no one to hang out with here," like, and then Jerry's overhearing this, being like, "Oh, she sounds pretty good looking," you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna hang outside this phone booth and maybe we could become introduced to each other. And then once when the phone call ends, a weird looking guy walks out.
Well, it's Bill Richmond as Stan Laurel.
Yeah, true. And doesn't sound, it's not the young female voice, not the face you would think would have that voice. And I feel like there's like a great aspect to this movie of just like, kind of hotels being a very unique place where, some loser schmo like a bellboy could run into a group of 20 models, or run into like an extremely wealthy couple or a Hollywood type guy, kind of have these interactions that he would not have on his own if he just worked at a bank maybe, or something like that. And it captures that great aspect, and kind of like the fantasies you kind of tell yourself when you work, kind of like a shitty job, your thoughts that you kind of keep cycling, throughout the day. And there's kind of just like a curiosity to the bellboy character here, where he kind of seems to, naively follow his nose, and all of this is communicated through the gags. It's not, he's a mute character. Well, we say he's mute, but, he's just,
we learn the moral of the story.
Yeah. We say he's mute, but at the end, he's, they ask, why don't, I can't remember what prompts him to talk, but that they're like, why don't you ever say anything? So, well, nobody ever asked me, man. You know what I mean?
Then Walter Winchell comes in with the voiceover, like, you'll never know what the next man's story is if you never ask him.
Exactly. So, if you're back in high school listening to this, and there's like some kid in your class, he's like, that kid's weird. He never says anything to anyone. You know what I mean? Why don't you go up and, ask him how his day is, or whatever. That's my extended clip challenge of the week. Find the quietest person and ask them, what have you been watching lately? What have you been up to? Just to, take something morally positive from this movie. But I don't know, to wrap it up, I'm going a little too long here. It is just all the kind of like small visual details that we've kind of pointed out, kind of like the clown car gag and how he wraps that up. Like, I really do think it's like all the small details like that really makes, him stand out as a filmmaker, because the gags are funny enough for sure. And I enjoy this movie on a gag basis alone. I especially like the variants too, because he is known for like, that is the Jerry signature, the drawn out kind of going longer, but there's also just some good A to B, very quick gags that kind of serve as transition here. Like thinking of when he has to go get, one of the bellhops tells him, "Oh, go unload that trunk," and then there's just an engine in the trunk, and then he just gives the engine, he takes the engine up to the room, and all that's very quick. That's like 45 seconds, and you get an A to B joke that's basically finished there. And when it is just a gag movie, you have to find out how to layer them, how to weave them in and out with each other, and all that's just very expertly done in this very short, condensed amount of time. And yeah, I really, rewatching it just confirms, why he's one of my favorites, and just really unique to the comedy genre. I feel like, I kind of wish he was a little bit more influential, even, you know what I mean? Like, just for comedy directors to really, just know, how important kind of the small details and kind of the visual flourishes that he gives off here are kind of vital to, making jokes land. So yeah, respect to the total filmmaker himself, Jerry Lewis.
Absolutely respect. I'm gonna go 4 bullets on this one. I love it. I will say it's not one of my favorite Jerry movies, though. I think it's great, but like, to be completely honest, within a year or two after this, he makes The Errand Boy, which is like kind of the better version of this, in my opinion. The Errand Boy being another pretty much sketch movie that just follows him as like a PA at Paramount, basically. I don't know. Have you guys seen that one?
Actually not, shamefully.
No, I haven't.
That one's another like really low budget black and white, like, he shot at the studio that employed him. And it's hilarious. Like, I think he really steps up his game kind of gag wise on that one. But then that being said, like, it's still one of the funniest movies of like the 60s, most of his stuff is. And this movie is just an incredible document of a person making a film for the first time who just knows exactly what they're doing, but like in a different way than, let's say, Orson Welles with Kane, who was like rebuilding it from the ground up on his first time around. Jerry just came right into it like he had been making films for 10 years and was like one of the go-to guys at the studio or something like that. And yeah, he's just one of the greats, one of my favorites. Yeah, that's all on The Bellboy. We'll be right back on Extended Clip.
They should make, this White Lotus, this hotel show, very popular. They should make it about the Bellboy, next season.
Oh, yeah, no, that's really flip it on its head. Make that class, I don't know. I don't know what White Lotus is about. I know it's something about, it's about rich people and the fact that they're bad, I guess. I don't know. It's like Girlfriend TV, but like, that all the girlfriends hate, I feel like. Really? I don't think I have like talked to, I mean, I guess like a handful of people that I know
but just in your...
like it, but I feel like most of my friends that watch it like just kind of actively hate it at the same time.
Now that you think about it, I feel like maybe it's more specific to this latest season, but you're right. I feel like it was kind of more of a thing people kind of took enjoyment in being like critiquing a little bit, kind of being like, oh, I didn't like that aspect of it, but it was popular, so everyone like commented on it. I thought you were gonna say it's Girlfriend TV that the boyfriends watch too. I thought that was gonna be the end of your phrase.
Oh,
but...
no. I mean, I guess there's some. Have you watched any of it or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Did you like it?
It's all right. You know what I mean? I'm more like, I'm putting my producer hat on, but it's more like, it's like made for like people to like watch and discuss. And I don't even know if I respect that or whatever, but it's like, I recognize that,
You're grinding too much, man. Yeah. Putting your producer hat on all the time. I see it, man. It's, I mean, maybe less, it's not a problem, but I like that. I like the hungry energy you're bringing to the table here.
We're just talking about the White Lotus. We're talking like, like water cooler at a job type conversation. You know what I mean? You see
No, that is when Eddie goes to pee or get like a snack. Malcolm and I are like two coworkers who are like, oh, okay.
You see the game last night?
So yeah, no, it was pretty crazy basketball game last night.
Right when they hear the fan in the bathroom go on, it's like, you think he's gonna let us go early today? I am not gonna hang out with him after if he asks.
What should I make up that I have to do?
Yeah.
Just not aware of the fact that we're still recording.
Did it again, buddy. We didn't have to watch the movies. We just let Eddie do it.
True, yeah. I've just been reading the wiki descriptions for these movies. I haven't been watching them for only the past 4 weeks. You know what I mean? I usually try to watch the movie.
JT, do you hear the ice cream truck?
What are you getting from? If you were to go get something from that ice cream truck, what would you get right now?
Choco Taco.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Is the Choco Taco still around? I thought they discontinued them.
Why would they do that? That's woke bullshit.
Yeah, true. It was like an Aunt Jemima situation. Yeah, I think I did see that though. I think I did. You know, I keep up with snack news.
Yeah.
So I think
we've already discussed that this would be a better podcast if it was about snacks.
Yeah. But I think I did see that they discontinued the Choco Taco, and that was a childhood favorite, and that was a great answer to that question. That really sparked my imagination.
One of my first favorite podcasts was actually like pre-Doughboys by like 10 years was I don't know about 10 years, but like 5 years was Mike and Tom Eat Snacks, and it was Michael Ian Black.
Oh yeah,
and,
I listened to that.
Tom Cavanaugh, I want to say, was the actor's name, who was the other guy. Yeah, I remember listening to the first like 50 episodes of that when it came out and like loving it for like a year. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of just put it on the back burner, and then eventually they stopped doing it anyway. But that was like an early one that like I used to have like a dedicated MP3 player. And I would like load episodes onto that, like when I didn't have a smartphone, even like, it was tough sailing in the early pod days.
You really had to work to get your entertainment, you know? But hearing that just made me think like, damn, you know, we should have we should have started this podcast when I was like 14.
Yeah.
You know what I
when
mean?
there were no podcasts.
You know, cause you could really just make a like getting Doug with high. It's just like, you know, what if people smoked weed on a podcast? Like how crazy would that be? You know what I mean? Like that's you know, that's how the boom was back then.
Yeah.
You know? So if we just came up with that idea first, I mean,
we would have just been the first movie podcast, and that would have been just fine. I think we would have had to go real early though, because Film Spotting was like 2007, I want to say. Yeah. Because I remember when I listened to that in college, I was like, let me hear what like one of the first episodes sounded like, and like one of the first ones was There Will Be Blood. Damn. Yeah, like new release There Will Be Blood. And I remember like the guy Jesse Thorpe or whatever from like he's on NPR and like other stuff. Like I remember him calling into that, and like he was like a college radio guy at the time. It's just very odd podcast origins from the late 2000s. That's all, you know.
Yeah.
If you're like me, if you're a historian of the medium, you go back to this kind of thing.
There was this, I can't even remember what it was called, or there was this film podcast I used to listen to, like quite, like it was definitely, like it was around the time when I listened to like Film Spotting.
Sure.
It was like my number two. It was like those two I've listened to, and I can't. It was some sort of name like Film Blank, so it's kind of hard to remember. Maybe like Film Grab. I don't know, but like, and you know what? There's not even anything that interesting at the back end of this explanation. I just remembered like they broke up, and I remembered seeing like a couple years ago that like one of the hosts became like a right wing, like blue check guy, like trying to rack up like faves on a reply or something like that. And I was
going
like,
the way of the rebeller.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Which is, you know, we did outlast rebeller, you know what I mean? So
we did outlast rebeller.
Became the real rebellers.
Real rebellers.
As the title of our podcast years ago said. So that's one notch on our belt that no one could take from us. That we kind of took Rebeller's throne, and now we're the real Rebellers.
I don't know if people like, because I know that there's some younger people that listen to our show, like who are like 21 or something like that. So like, do you think they would have known what Rebeller was?
I mean,
like,
Rebeller was really short-lived.
And it was like because it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So they would have been like teenagers, like pre-college, you know? Like, I don't know if any high schoolers knew what Rebeller was.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Rebeller itself didn't exactly make insane waves.
No, it did not.
So...
No, to the point where the way they recruited writers was just like not even DMing people, but like replying to their posts that were like cool film Twitter posts, like about like right-wing movies, you know? Like
all the Eastwood auteurists got recruited.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that's like the only outlet that's ever asked me to write for them, to be honest. It was like 2019, and I like wrote something about Dragged Across Concrete, and I still remember the Rebeller account replied to me like, "Hey Eddie, we dig what you're putting down," or like, "We're really picking up what you're putting down."
Damn,
something like that.
Maybe we should have squatted up with those people back then and
made $0.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess they didn't really explode to success, but maybe we needed each other. Maybe it was, I don't know.
I mean, I
not.
feel like all the people who wrote there like are still around though. I mean, it was like Sonny Bunch and Bill Ryan and like those kind of guys, right?
Yeah,
Who are all like, hey, they've made more money than me in this shit.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying, you know. But
anyway,
woulda, coulda, you know,
shoulda, woulda, coulda,
coulda. If we were gonna make our right wing pivot, it would have had to been like 4 years ago. So now we kind of missed out on the boat there.
I don't know. That's kind of like post irony to like do it now. You know,
I think you can always keep that in your back pocket. Yeah, I don't think it's that hard of a thing to do. And the audience.
Oh, there would be
still
so
out
many
there.
people that would be like, "Oh, I knew it."
Yeah, that's what we can't do it just because people be like, "Oh yeah, we knew though." It's like, no, this is actually in my secret life. I'm still organizing
the
labor.
most perfect leftist that there ever was.
I'm organizing labor in my off time, but you know, people.
Yeah. But I organize labor. I put like sticky notes on it, post-it notes, and put it into different bins with different categories. And
I recycle heavy. I go through my apartment's recycling and take out all the non-recyclables. You know, these are just.
I tweet a lot.
Yeah.
You can always email us at extendedclippodcast@gmail.com. This week's email comes from Warble Flutter. Now, folks, I guess you don't have to use your real names. I don't care. Whatever.
That could be their real name too. Don't be so dismissive.
Another
we
Eddie
have
critique of the email.
Wide variety of listeners from different places, different cultures. I'm sorry if the Eddie has just offended you by mocking your beautiful, sweet name from whatever culture that's from.
No, that's his Ellis Islanded name. He came from like Croatia, and they were like, "You're Warble Flutter now."
Yeah, it'd be cool if this guy's name was like John Smith, but we'll take Warble Flutter for sure.
You know, I like a name with like a nice punch to it. You know, Quentin Tarantino.
Brian De Palma. These are the names I respect. Just all direct. I like names like Martin Scorsese. D.W. Griffith. All right, name.
Just like a cinephile and a pregnant woman next to him. No, you don't get it. I need a name for my child that has that zip to it. You know, Rainer Werner Fassbinder. You know, that has zip to it. You're saying what, Joey? You want our kid to be named Joey?
We should just do this bit for an hour. We just keep naming Howard Hawks. It has to be a name like Howard Hawks. All right.
Well, if you're having a daughter, then you can't. You're out of ideas.
Yeah,
There's nothing there.
Warble says, whenever the ratings bullets pop, as a listener, should I make some sort of finger gun gesture? And if so, is there a specific technique that you would recommend? From Warble. Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, I am not here to give you finger techniques.
Fingering? Teach us how to finger?
Like, I don't know, because like if you want to do the classic, 2-finger gun, like if you want to just do that in the air and look like a crazy person in public, like that's okay. You could play along, It's like playing along to a song, like how you like drum on your like thighs when you're sitting down sometimes, or like play a little air drums or something like that, It's like that. It's like a little,
Yeah, it's up to the listener, I guess.
Or you could do it like you're playing a sample pad.
Oh,
because that's like what I'm doing.
Oh,
yeah. People don't know I make this show on an MPC 16.
Eddie's posted up here like Jay Dilla.
Yeah,
just fucking making a hit podcast after podcast.
I have 8 IKEA cubes full of 45s that I'm sampling right now. JT doesn't exist. He is an amalgamation of samples.
I just imagine when people are hearing the bullets, because and I mean, from what people have told us before, and also in general, like just how I listen to a podcast, I kind of like zone out or whatever. Like if I'm doing something else, I think the appropriate reaction is like a real like active shooter situation. the bullets take you by surprise and you hit the deck. That I think is what you should be doing.
Yeah, because you're not firing the bullets. We're firing the fucking bullets, and we don't know where those. We'll shoot them up in the air. We don't care where they land.
Well, one of the reactions that I imagine, and one person has told me that this happened to them, is like what JT described is the more extreme version, but like. A lot of people listen to podcasts when they fall asleep, right?
Absolutely.
And so, like, you're kind of dozing off and, like, your head's falling down or back or whatever way, and then you hear the bullets, and you're just like, oh! Like, one of my friends told me that happened to him. I was just like, that is the only good compliment I've ever gotten on a podcast, just that I awoke you from your slumber like that.
Just having an erotic dream, and you let the podcast playing, and then you
then
just get shot up while you're having sex.
Yeah, you see like Dick Tracy come in or something, like some old school like 40s guy with a Tommy gun come in, and that sound effect comes out of his gun, and you wake up.
Yeah, this is
falling asleep to our podcast and having an erotic dream. It's crazy.
Well, if we were talking about a Jess Franco movie or something,
Well, that's the power of Eros is so powerful. It might sneak up on you when you least expect it.
Oh, it's so true. The auditory Eros of this show is just unbelievable.
That's that thing about Eros I'm always talking about. How it sneaks up on you.
I've actually been studying Eros as of late.
I've been going through my many volumes of Eros studies. So
yes.
I've been learning a lot. But this is where there not being a video component kind of.
Yeah.
Because you point your fingers like that, you know. You can't tell what we're doing.
Malcolm's doing the shocker. That's how he wants you to do it with the finger. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Talk about sexual education. Yeah, wow.
Isn't that like Dane Cook's logo?
I'm not sure. That'd be pretty sick, though, to be like have fingering be your logo. Well, here's the thing. It made me think about.
It is, dude. This was Dane Cook's logo.
Oh, yes.
Oh no, it's similar. It's similar to the Shocker.
It kind of looks like a Aphex Twin, like electronic music style logo.
It looks like an inverted Shocker.
Oh,
JT, can you see it?
Yeah.
You can see it? That's cool. Okay.
It makes me think of like Autechre for some reason or something like that.
Is that how you say that artist's
Oh
name?
yeah. Oh yeah. Autechre.
Autechre.
You should get into Autechre.
I always thought it was like Octre.
That's a little too. I don't know if I would listen to them if it was pronounced
like that. It's a duo,
like that.
right?
Yeah.
No, I've heard some of their
Well,
stuff.
yeah,
It's cool.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Look, I'm not that much. I'm not that. People think I'm like addicted to guitar music, and like I can't listen to anything that doesn't have guitars.
That is
in
true.
it.
I realized the way I said that kind of made it. It kind of sounded loaded. It kind of was
It's
implicative.
like, oh yeah, no, Eddie. I know you don't like rap, but like you should check out Illmatic sometime.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you.
You ever heard of Grandmaster Flash, Eddie?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But for finger guns, right? When I use finger guns, it's not like anatomically correct. It's not how you would shoot a gun. Like I'll have, the pointer in the middle kind of pointing out, and then I'll, use like my thumb to go like, like that.
Well, because
going on
that
top.
classic finger gun is like more of you're making your hand into kind of the prop gun rather than miming holding it.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so damn.
It's the same thing with like a phone. When you hold a phone, when you mime that, usually you do the shaka bra.
Yeah.
And you do it like an old school telephone like that.
Yeah.
But you should just be doing it like that.
I never really.
I don't know if people still mime a phone like that because phones aren't that long. But maybe these new iPhones, man, they're getting longer and longer.
Is that true?
They're coming out with these Milton Berle-sized iPhones.
Damn, I need to keep up with the tech rags. I didn't know that they're.
I feel like that's the trend. Is like every new iPhone is big.
I
haven't gotten a new iPhone in like a decade and a half. But
yeah, we're not the people to ask with our busted ass phones.
Our busted ass Android.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Wow, no blue messages.
Yeah, green bubbles for me.
That's
it's okay. That's how I want to live my life. All right, it's a choice. All right. Join us on the Patreon for the second half of Jerry Week. And thank you to Warble Flutter for emailing us. Thank you for everyone who listens to the podcast for doing so. But you could really help the show right now by signing up at the Patreon. The link will be in the description. We got a couple things on the back burner, plus a couple of unexpected financial occurrences. So, like things are happening. But, show's going to be great next month. Not that it wasn't great this month, but you know what I mean. I'm putting together the June sketch right now, and it's a killer sketch, guys. It's a killer sketch. Goodbye, everybody.
Every child, everyone, girl or boy, in my elementary school, we only had one favorite movie star. There was only one adult movie star that we knew. And when his movie showed on television, it was like Saturday morning in the middle of the afternoon. On a Wednesday was Jerry Lewis. And he was the children's movie star. Kids really responded to Jerry Lewis, and he was theirs. And he was for 6, 7 different generations of children. Let me introduce the man, the legend, the treasure, Jerry Lewis.